Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm going to be ranking all of my Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palettes. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Okay, so I do not have a huge Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palette collection. I do have 6 quads and 1 full-size palette, but I thought I would share with you what some of my favorites are and which ones I think are worth the splurge. So some of these are limited edition and not available anymore, but the ones that are available I will leave linked down below. Coming in at number 7 was a holiday release from 2021, and this is the Luxury Palette of Pearls in Cosmic Pearl. So I loved the design of the packaging on these ones, and there actually was 2 of these palettes. So this one is Cosmic Pearl, and I thought this one was going to be the most exciting of the 2 of them because in photos this shade here looked very purple, but it's actually more of that duochrome sort of blue, brown, purple shift. It's just really not a very flattering shade, so I don't love that. I think these 3 are great. I just don't think that they're revolutionary, so you can easily get those 3 shades from any other Charlotte Tilbury quad or any other eyeshadow palette you have. So I just didn't think this was a very good one, and the shade was very misleading when it came to photos. So unfortunately this one is number 7. And coming at number 6 is the Walk of No Shame quad. So this one I don't mind so much. This one has 2 more satiny shades, a shimmer, which is like the pop shade, and a prime shade. So this one is fine. I don't mind this one. I just find that these shades do pull a little bit more red. So there is a lot of similarities between this exact quad and the Pillow Talk Dreams quad, but these 2 shades just pull a little bit more red, which I don't find the most flattering on my eyes. So because they're just pulling a little bit too warm, too red, I've ranked this one lower. I do think the formula of these are good, but this one just wasn't a favorite for me personally. Coming in at number 5 is the Hollywood Flawless Eye Filter in Star Aura. So this one has that beautiful star packaging, just like the new highlighters that were just released. And this is what Star Aura looks like. So these are actually all baked formulas, which is definitely unique for my collection to have an eyeshadow palette with all baked shadows, and it's very, very pretty. She did release, I believe, either 2 or 3 of these in this line, so this is the lightest one that she had, and they are all shimmers, so I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like this. I don't reach for it the most because it is super light. It is really, really pretty. It's gorgeous for every day. I will say that. I do think the formula is quite unique. It's not my favorite formula by any means, but it's also not a bad one. I think it's a great everyday quad. Very, very simple. And I do think that is the beauty of Charlotte Tilbury quads, is how simple she makes it to create a look. There are 4 shades, so it doesn't get overly complicated. She does have a little diagram on the back. If you're looking for a little bit of inspiration or assistance, you do have that. These are all very pricey quads. These retail for, I believe, $55 US, 65 Canadian, which is a lot for 4 shades, but we know I am a huge Charlotte Tilbury fan, and it wasn't until recent years that I started kind of dabbling in her quads. So I do see these ones go in and out of stock, so if I can find them, I will link them. I think they're really pretty for every day if you're just looking for something light and pretty to throw on the eyelids, just kind of put it all on and go. You don't even have to use every single shade. You can easily just one and done, and it'll give you a really pretty look. We have another quad coming up that has a very similar sort of situation, and I think it's pretty for that. I just think you have to want that kind of look. I think if you're looking for a lot of depth and dimension, this is definitely not the one for you, but I do think this is very pretty. Coming in at number 4 is the original Pillow Talk quad. So this one is pretty. It is very, very light. That's one thing I've noticed. The reason this one isn't my favorite is just because I think it's so light, and I don't know if it's the most long wearing. All of the other quads, I find that I get a good wear time. This one I don't seem to, which is really interesting to me. However, I do like the color story more than some of the others. I like that you get some mattes. I like these shimmers over here. This pop shade is very, very beautiful. It adds such a pretty sparkle, and this is the most perfect everyday palette if you have a lighter skin tone. I think if you have a deeper skin tone, I really can't see you loving this as much, but I think it's pretty. I don't necessarily think this one is worth the steep price tag, but I do think it's beautiful if you're looking for a very simple Charlotte Tilbury quad that you can throw on every single day. You know you're gonna like the look. It's gonna be a classic look, and it can work great for work. It can work great for a night out, whatever you're doing. I do think this is great for that, and for that reason, this one does rank pretty high just because it is foolproof. It's just very much on the light side. Coming in at number 3 is the other quad that was released for holiday in 2021. So it also has this star detailing, and this is the one in Celestial Pearl. So I love this one. So you do get a satin shade, you do get one of these more duochrome baked shades, and then you get 2 shimmers. This one is really pretty. This is one I don't reach for as much simply because it has so many shimmers in it, but it is really beautiful. This baked shade here, it actually has a lot of payoff. Definitely way more than in the Star Aura quad. I feel like you get so much more pigment and payoff out of that shade. So I do think this one was very much worth it. I love that it came with a satin shade, so you could kind of blend it out and you could build it up to get a little bit of depth, but this is one that is never going to be too deep. I've seen this one come back in stock briefly when she's having sales, and I do try to link it because I do really love this one. I just think it's so pretty, so easy to work with. And this is one that if I wanted a really glam look really quick, I would probably just grab this because it would give me such a pretty sparkle. So I think this is absolutely stunning. This packaging, I wish she would come out with again because I think this packaging is absolutely beautiful as well. Coming in at number 2 is the only 12 pan palette I have from Charlotte. And I will say that I feel like her 12 pan palettes are such a much better value than the quads. The quads are so expensive. Again, they're $55 for 4 shades. With her larger palettes, you get 12 shades for $75. $20 more, and you get so much more product and range. So I do think the larger palettes are more worth it. This one is coming in at number 2, and this is the Smoky Eyes Are Forever palette. Now I've been wanting to pick up the Pillow Talk palette, and I even considered the Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize, but this one was the first one I splurged on, and I do love this. I think this is so pretty. This is definitely more of a fall color story for me personally. I love how you go from very light to quite deep down here. I love how she organizes these into little trios to help you create a look if that's what you're looking for. And I love the colors she chose. I think she did such a great job. I don't think all of the shimmers in here are my favorite type of shimmers. Some of them are a little bit more dry and flaky. But overall, I think this is such a beautiful palette. The biggest thing I have to say about Charlotte Tilbury shadows is the way they look very classy, very elegant. And it's really hard to come up with a look you don't like with her shades. I really, really like that. It's very classy, very elegant makeup, and I love her brand for that. And this is no different. So I think if you pick up one of her palettes, and say you're somebody who works in an office, you prefer a nice basic classic look for every day, but sometimes if you're going out or doing something different, you want to change it up a bit. I think this gives you such a nice range. You're always going to have a very classy, sophisticated look. So that's one thing I really think about Charlotte shadows and why I think they are worth it sometimes. But I do think if you have a choice, I would splurge a little bit extra on her larger palettes just because they're such a much better value. But my number 1 favorite is the Pillow Talk Dreams quad. So this one came out in 2022, and this one is actually very similar in color story in many ways to the Walk of No Shame, but this one leans more neutral than that one. But this has so much more depth than the original Pillow Talk, and I love it for that. I will say the shimmer shades are way more sparkly, and you can get so much more depth. You can keep it light by just going in with this one and then building it on the outer corner, but you can really smoke it out with this shade, and then you can get the prettiest sparkle with these two. I think this is beautiful. You definitely get so much more, punch out of this one than the original Pillow Talk, just holding them side by side. I have said before that this one, if this one's the daytime, this is the nighttime. But if you have a deeper skin tone, you're going to prefer this one. And I just prefer this one in general. I like it a lot more. And then side by side, the Walk of No Shame. So side by side, they are quite similar, but again, this one just leans more red and a little less flattering on my skin tone. This just looks so good. So complimentary, especially on my blue eyes. I love this quad. This is definitely my very favorite. And this is the type of quad I get from Charlotte that makes me want to purchase more and more. I was so sad this past holiday when she didn't release a larger palette or even a quad. However, hopefully she will have some newer eyeshadows this year. It's just my favorite thing to review. It's my favorite thing to test out. And it's my favorite step in my makeup routine in general. So I do hope she comes out with more palettes or quads this year. And I also just wanted to do this ranking because sometimes she does play with different formulas, like the Star Aura palette that was all baked. So even though her quads are very expensive, sometimes they're just really, really not worth it. So I really wanted to do this ranking so I could share my thoughts on which quads are worth the splurge if you're looking, or which formulas are the best from Charlotte. So those are my thoughts on my 7 Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palettes. Let me know down below what your favorites are or which ones have been on your wish list for a while. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!